the Grey Hat Beard podcast.
Hello and welcome to Grey Hat Beard Princess, show 61, with the Modern Workplace podcast where we talk about all things Microsoft 365. I'm the Grey of Grey Hat Beard Princess. My name's Kevin McDonald. I'm the Head of Practice Modern Workplace at CPS, and I almost said Office Apps and Service. Should be Microsoft 365 Office Apps and Services MVP as well. Unfortunately, we haven't got a hat today. He's been playing around in his office and sitting on hot, sweaty trains, so hasn't made it back in time. But we do have our beard.
We do. It's been a while. I need to remember what my name is. Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Gary Trinder. I'm Beard of Grey Hat Beard Princess, and I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft.
Hi there. My name is Louisa. I'm the Princess of Grey Hat Beard Princess. I'm an independent M365 and Power Platform consultant, and very, very newly dual MVP for M365 development and business applications.
Fantastic. And the observant among you may have noticed that we have a guest with us. Hans, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Hans Brender, coming from Germany like Louisa too, and I'm a 10 years MVP Office 365, and I always talk about OneDrive.
Not 2 drive, never 3 drive, always OneDrive.
OneDrive, yes.
Absolutely.
But at one time, a SkyDrive, right?
Yeah, SkyDrive or the former knows Groove and all this stuff, but we want to have to go to the future, not going to the past.
Yeah, that is true.
Also, and I need to say this, why is it called OneDrive if we all have at least 2?
Yeah,
because I normally say it if I am working for a consultant. In companies, I say you have to interrupt no OneDrive personal or consumer. Therefore, you have only one OneDrive. I have 4.
Very, very good.
So we'll be speaking with Hans in part 2 about the future of collaboration, which may be 2 drive. We don't know. We'll find about that in part 2, which should be out this time next week. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the news, and we haven't done news for a while. I think various conferences and other sessions have come along, so there's a few bits to cover. And for me, it's all about Viva, always, but it was interesting that we got blindsided by a brand new Viva pillar as Viva Sales was announced. And I think it's fair to say not many people saw this coming at all. For those who still haven't seen it, what it's all about is automating your sales processes. So using that kind of same AI magic that Viva brings in there, but trying to bring that to sales to make it as easy as possible for all those salespeople who will naturally always write down their notes, who will always capture their meetings, always put all the good stuff in there as well. But it's all the automation around that. But where it's different to other things is where it's kind of brought in that ability to work not just with Dynamics, but also with Salesforce. And I don't know, when I first saw it, I was like, right, sales, yeah, I get that bit. I get the kind of dynamics, making things faster, AI, I like that. But how does that fit with Viva, which is kind of been the employee experience platform? And is sales really about employee experience? It felt a little bit odd to me when I first heard it. I've kind of thought about it a bit more, and I wrote a blog post where I now see, whereas for developers, we got the Microsoft Graph. That is the layer across all the different things that gives you a consistent way of getting all that kind of graph magic. Viva is now the name, the brand, for getting everything across the UI layer. So you get the AI and you get the ability to connect into lots of other things. I don't know what anyone else thought. Did it blindside people and confuse them as well?
Shall I say it?
Go on. What's it? 3 minutes in.
Yeah. Okay, I have opinions. So why do I have opinions? So no, it's great. So I don't mind the name, because for me, Viva is not only employee experience, but it is that feeling of being connected, so that all the aspects of working and learning are connected. And I know that Microsoft doesn't phrase it like that exactly, but this is how I translate this, at least to my customers, so that they will understand what Microsoft means. And in that sense, it really makes sense to then say, hey, all those salespeople who usually refuse to put in their notes into the system, they're quoting that, but just
Wherever
like and then of course the system does not reflect the reality because they write it somewhere. And that, of course, is the same thing as, yeah, it should be in the ticket, but it's in a chat. It is the very same thing that people in helpdesk, for example, experience. So that is just another sales system. It is literally the same thing because it is customers and it's events and they need to be processed. And if we now think about, hey, let's bring this together and have a more connected experience, then it makes sense to sell this under the Viva brand. And I don't mind the name because they would change it anyways. So,
are there any other connectors?
At the moment, they've only announced Salesforce and Dynamics, but they've said that the intention is to connect to other things as well. The first time I heard that, I went, yeah, yeah, I can't think of any other sales systems apart from those two, but I'm sure there are other big ones they use. I'm not a sales IT expert, but yeah, I think the intention is to connect to others. And I hope, I know Louise, so we see Yannick a lot. I'm hoping there's an API, so it doesn't matter what you connect to and can do the same thing, but hasn't been any announcement around that at all yet.
Well, if there is no API, then most developers will not treat that seriously because if something is only available via UI, I'm not a firm believer of desktop flows. You know, it's like just like
my budget
okay.
won't cater for it.
Yeah, so nah, but I think we know this and we established this already that dear Microsoft, if you want to make people happy, then make developers happy because that is a stream of revenue. And it is just like, it's a good idea to make the devs happy so that they can extend the software that you try to sell.
It makes Gary's job harder otherwise.
Exactly. This is great feedback. I'm just taking notes, and there we are straight away. This is direct. Yeah. I think I just want to add one point to what Louise was saying about being connected. And I think if you look at the article as well, the screenshot that they've got in there is Outlook and being in Outlook, being in email, and seeing Viva Sales, and that's like what was mentioned about having to go to a system to put things in. It's now bringing that functionality to where you're working, right? You're going to be working in Outlook, you're going to be working in Teams. So making it as frictionless as possible to add information into a sales system is always going to help, right? So I think, that connectivity, bringing functionality to where people are working is a big thing that I think we're hopefully going to see more of through Outlook and Teams. So, yeah.
And especially salespeople working in Outlook because they face these external people, which mostly means that they do not work with their customers or customers to be in a team. We tried for the last 10 years to bring those people away from email, although that was a perfect use case for email. And now it's just like trying this the other way around and bring the data to where people already work. That is such a good idea. So I like it a lot.
My question is my question is how much does it cost?
It's a very good question, and they haven't announced that yet, but that
Can
will
I
be
make
interesting.
a guess? If you have a Dynamics, so that is, I'm just like, I'm guessing, okay? But I think if you have a Dynamics license, this will be included.
I hope so.
I think if you have not a Dynamics license and want to go for Salesforce, then you will pay very good money, just like an add-on to E5 at least. That is my wild guess, and I would say it's pretty educated.
And I think it will be an add-on, like the rest of Viva, it will be an add-on regardless. If you've got E1, E3, E5, Business Premium, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. It will still be an add-on.
You will just like mix and match all your licenses that you need.
Yeah.
And then you need just like to have an in-house consultant just for the licenses.
Yes, on that one.
So we need an E7. All included.
Don't give any ideas, please.
Well,
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see what license when it comes to non-Dynamics things that they'll put in there, especially if it's going to be non-Salesforce as well. If it's one that you develop yourself, or there'll be different licenses, etc., etc. I think that the nice thing it means is that for salespeople, if they're moving companies, they've suddenly got a little less that they need to learn, so they can move from Dynamics to Salesforce or something else more easily, and it's just integrated with what you're doing day in, day out, assuming they've bought the licenses for whatever it is where they go. So and I think the other interesting thing is seeing where they go next with this Viva. If this feels like more of a targeting of particular areas of the organization, who's next? Where they're gonna, Viva Developer. There we go. That could be the next one. Maybe that's the rename for the GitHub Copilot, Viva Developer. It makes it easy to do the right thing. AI powered. There we go. You've heard it here first. Viva Developer.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Gareth's
like that.
Nervous. He said something. Yeah. I can imagine the outrage.
No comment.
My question in Germany is always, what about privacy?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm guessing it would, with a lot of the Viva things, it would wrap around whatever the source system is. So it would either be kind of linked with Outlook or into the source system itself. So it wouldn't hold any data itself. But yeah, I think it's a very good question.
I think it's a question for lawyers, not for IT people.
So I had the question about my bot, and it's the same. A mid-sized company and the DAX says to me, we have to say what's involved there. And there we talk about privacy. And a chatbot is a chatbot. And I want to have the complete procedure, but behind the scene, what do we store? And I have to tell the people. So no, it's a short question. I only want to say, okay, it's not so easy to translate. And I think all privacy people has to be at least 3 years studying IT, because then they know what about stuff they are talking about.
Yeah. No, I think it's true. And I think the question will come up. It has been announced. There's no preview at the moment. There's no dates around it. There's not a huge amount of information that's been made public. But I'm sure those questions will all come up. Licensing and privacy, the two good ones.
Also, I always find this very interesting when they announce a new feature or announce a new product, and then you go to careers.microsoft.com, and they are looking for the developers to build that feature or that product. I love that. I really love that. It's just like, this is how they build it. Because they need to just say these are the requirements for that job. So you need to be proficient in whatever. And then you just get a notion of, this is how they would do it.
I'm trying to work out how much trouble I'll get in for saying, well, sales always sell things before you're ready for it. But no, I
don't know if this is visible, but on my T-shirt is a print that says troublemaker.
Yes. I know I'm stepping on toes there. Sorry. Let's move on to the next bit of news. Now, Gary, the OneNote has just synced, so it's not things out of order, but I'm going to push you down slightly, I'm afraid. And there's been some great conversations. I know, Louise, I think I dragged you into it. Apologies slightly for where the conversation went, but some really good stuff that has been happening around beautiful Power Apps and how you can kind of design good-looking ones that don't just look like another Power App.
Yeah, exactly. So over the last couple of weeks, we saw amazing contributions by Kristine Kolodziejski, who is an amazing contributor, focusing on, lastly at least, very, very beautiful Power Apps. And she really stretched this to no end. And she has an amazing blog. And she teaches people how to inject CSS to Power Apps to create this neomorphic or soft UI design that is super popular, looks super modern, and does not look like Power Apps at all. And for me, so if I develop a Canvas app, that is always the goal, that people do not assume that this is a power app, because it devalues the work if it looks ugly. And no one wants to use ugly stuff. And Kristine really makes it easy, or just like easier for most people to then understand CSS, which is an art by itself, and then inject this into I mean, we all struggled with that, right? At least at some point. Absolutely, and inject this into Canvas app and create very, very beautiful components and controls. And there is now a total hype on LinkedIn and on Twitter about that, and everyone tries to just like jump on that. And it is amazing to see what now people come up with once they are just like triggered. Hey, it could look like this, and they feel inspired and they want to explore this. So I'm totally amazed by this movement.
And I think the reason that Power Apps often look like Power Apps is because it's easy to go down that route. It's the same reason that kind of the VB apps in the days gone by were grey. What I love with what Kristine's done is that she's made it easy to look good as well. She's built those components, given guides that other people can use it as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so the reason why most Power Apps look as ugly as they usually do is that the style of the default controls is just like ugly AF. So whoever designed those had no eye for design. And that is quite common because Microsoft, that is an engineering company. If we had the same at Apple, I promise you that would look better and would be less functional. So it would be less compatible.
I love the way you're nodding. I like that.
It would be less compatible. So of course that is of course due to culture in Microsoft, and that is okay. But we need to teach people design, like we need to teach people about coding practices and about good standards. And if someone tells me, yeah, I'm a developer, I'm just like not a good designer, I always need to disagree with that, because developers love grits and they love math, and good design depends on grits and math. So if you can just like calculate just like a little bit, you will be able to create a good design, and you can read documentation on how good design works and then implement this to your app. And maybe you need just like a little bit more time, and maybe someone else will need to have just like a little bit more time than to figure out a nice backend. We all have our challenges, but it is doable, even in Power Apps. And I wish that the Power Apps team would be listening now. I wish. So, dear people, I appreciate your work. And if you get to just like make the default controls like a little bit nicer looking, and also replace those very, very odd and old-fashioned looking templates. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's the key as well, putting some of those examples. And I love Kristine's reply to someone we were chatting to on Twitter, with that we put it towards, was it dribble.com, Trouble B. I'll put it in the show notes, that had a whole load of agencies, people showcasing their designs. And you kind of need that inspiration every now and then. It's not just copying what other people have done with Power Apps, it's copying and being inspired by what other people have done, full stop.
Yeah, I mean, just like open your phone, pick a random app. It does not really matter what app that is, and see what you like and what you dislike. And then just like draw down the concepts from that. And if you like just like, so pastel is the new black. If you like pastel colors, then do that, but please stop a moment before you do that, because accessibility is still a thing. So mostly pastel colors are just like, so the color contrast ratio is just like not as good for most people. So we already have some constraints there as well, but it's a good idea to just like see what feels good to you, and then do this in Power Apps as well. There you go.
And I think, I know we've got Gary here as well. The same holds for doing custom developments as well. That thinking about how it looks, you've got the Fluent UI framework and various other related ones. I'm making sure I've got the right name for that these days. But and things like even the Teams toolkit that makes it easier to make apps look good? Sorry, I'm thinking that graph toolkit.
Graph toolkit. Yeah.
Well, can I say it again? I have opinions. Guys, I have opinions again because we know there is a thing called Fluent UI. This is how Office looks like and SharePoint looks like. And then there's a thing like Fluent UI North Star. That is how Teams looks like. Because Teams technically belongs to Office, but not design-wise.
Yeah,
and this is
could be better.
This is a pain in the ass, to be honest, for most people who care about design, because what if your app, and we talk about collaborative apps as well, so what if your app should reside in Teams, but should also be able to expand to Outlook.com or Office or somewhere else, and then the design does not match anymore, because if it should match to the look and feel of Teams, then, for example, a button is in this color purple, this dark bluish purple color, and the corners are slightly rounded, so the border radius is 4. And if you have an Office button, that is most probably the primary color of that site or wherever you want to host it in, because now you have a host application for that, a host site, and the corners are not rounded, so it does not match. And this means that you need to just like pause in a certain context and then just like apply a totally different design to all your content. And it's not as easy as Microsoft thinks it is. This puts just like additional load on developers of all kinds, and they could be doing better. So for Power Apps, I created a theme for Teams, which everyone can use, so that if you create a new app, that your app automatically, so the default controls automatically look like Teams. It's Fluent UI North Star, but for Power Apps. I know Fabio Francini did the same thing for Fluent UI.
Is that publicly available, Louise?
It is on GitHub. It's on GitHub.
It's in
the PNP organization, and then in the Power Apps samples repository.
Nice.
Yeah, and I know Fabio did the very same thing for Fluent UI, just like the Office one.
As well. Yeah, we'll get some links to those into the show notes for people interested in that. Moving on to the next bit of news. Sorry, Hans, I don't know how much development you do, but we're going to stick on the development thread for a little bit longer. Gary, you saw some news on Microsoft 365. CLI for Microsoft 365.
Yes. So CLI for Microsoft 365. So the regular monthly version that we released. So we released 5.4 at the back end of June. Lots of updates. If you want to check it out, we'll have the link in the show notes. So we've got updates for Planner, SharePoint Online, other services. But the key notable, I guess, feature that we've got in there is upgrading your projects to version 1.15 of SharePoint Framework. Notable because there's 3 updates that have come with this version. So the first is support for TypeScript 4.5 and Node v16 as well. So that's the current LTS version of Node, which is great because you're using a Node version that is fully supported now. The other update, though, as well, is the ability to customize your list forms. So this has been a huge, big ask of developers for a long time. I remember asking Vesa Juvonen it was a collab summit, I think it was 2018, years ago, saying, why can't we do this? And at that point, he was saying, it's a simple thing to do. We just need to work out, how it's going to happen. Well, finally it has. So developers now can take over the list forms like what they used to be able to do in the classic views. So you can take over the whole page. At the moment, there's going to be updates coming, but it's the first iteration, if you like. So it's a really good step, I think, now that you can start to use lists and document libraries and use those pages, the new edit and view pages. So definitely check that out if you want to upgrade your projects to the latest version.
Just to confirm that the CLI for Microsoft 365 doesn't allow you to customize the form extension at all. No. There's no functionality there. This is about doing it with SPFX, and you can upgrade your versions to be able to do that and then build that in SPFX itself.
Yeah, so if you're a SharePoint Framework developer and you're wanting to upgrade, say you've got an old a project that's an old version, you've come back to it and you're going, I want to upgrade the version of SharePoint Framework that it's using and get it up to the latest standards, then you can use the CLI tool to run a report. And it's going to tell you all the things that you just need to go through to upgrade your project and bring it up to date.
And I think that's an important point for people. It will point to you exactly all the files and all the lines you need to change.
It gives you an extensive list of to-dos, so to say.
and it ticks them off as done, but it doesn't do it for you.
It doesn't do it for you,
but do a little bit of work to help you understand it.
But we do provide scripts. So there are one-liner scripts that you can run. And like Luis mentioned, we document every single change, every required change, every optional change. You know, as a developer, you can make that choice whether you want to make that or not. So we leave you in control. And we know that people build and change their projects to how they fit. Every project is different, so we don't just kind of make a load of updates and then you've got a broken project at the end of it. No one wants that. We step you through the steps to make.
I like this a lot because first thing is, as you already said, every project is different, and if you just apply the one size fits all approach, then you would just make a lot of assumptions, and usually assumptions are just super costly. So we do not want to do that, right? And second thing, as a developer, I like to understand what am I doing right now. So I do not want to just run something and then boom, magic happens and now it works or it doesn't work anymore and I have no clue why. So I want to understand what I'm doing. So just listing everything that needs to happen now is just a super cool idea, so that developers then understand what is the impact of 1.15 on my project.
Exactly.
And maybe I decide to then not update now. That is perfectly fine as well. It's just making an informed decision. And of course, it's mostly a good idea to just have latest support as well. But if at some point I decide, hey, let's postpone this for another 6 weeks, I think that's okay as well.
No, that's nice. And I think being able to get to the latest Node version, excited about that.
That is great. Gary, would you like to tell me about my very, very new favorite CLI command? So we talked upfront about it. It's something about Teams.
Yeah, it's a sneak peek. So like I mentioned, we release a new version of CLI for Microsoft 365 every month. But what we do within that month is we release all of the updates so that you can get them straight away. So we release to a beta channel. And the command that Luis has just mentioned is, if I remember correctly, is Teams cache remove command, which allows you, doesn't matter which, doesn't matter which operating system you're on. So if you're on Windows, if you're on Linux, if you're on Mac, it's definitely, there's Team clients for Linux. I just had to check for a second. Yes, there is.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
You run that command and it will just remove all the cache from that location. So we've used the official Microsoft Docs in that implementation, and it will go through and it'll just clean everything up for you. So I know Luis mentioned that this is something that you seem to do on a regular basis. So this will be very helpful.
Well, so I know you don't, but I run on Windows mostly. So only very, very rarely using subsystem Linux, but so I need to use this on a regular basis, and being able to just do this in a little bit more nerdy way is sweet as well. But also customers, of course, appreciate that if you can include that and say, hey, just I don't know, as in some kind of maintenance thing, we want to include this command as well, just to keep everything in good shape. So it's highly appreciated.
Yeah.
So it's available now if you install the beta version. If you don't want to install the beta version, then it will be available at the end of the month.
Looking forward to your blog post then.
I could say, looking forward to this one, because I often, before Great Happy Princess, have to log out my main tenant into my personal tenant, into my own Microsoft 365 tenant, and the number of times I kind of sign out, click sign in, and it just signs me back into the other account. So I'm going to try this and see if this clears things out and makes that a little bit better. And that's on a Mac, to be fair. So it's not just Windows. Microsoft can make things bad on a Mac as well. Sorry, these problems can happen on a Mac.
That is a skill, right? So if you can just like mess up on different platforms.
Yes. Well.
And I know, Gary, you're not actively working on the Teams client, right?
Yes, definitely not.
Okay. Because so if so, then you need to tell me, because then I will not rant about that in the show anymore. I will keep this then private.
Really? No.
Yeah, I might have opinions still.
So moving off the dev world, one thing that caught my eye, it was announced a little while back, in fact in June, but they're having an Microsoft Search Ask Us Anything. Now I get quite a few questions about search, and I think, Hans, you must get questions about search on the OneDrive side.
Too many. Therefore, I built a bot. Anyway. The good thing is people also have to see where they are. If they are in the system, Windows, if they are in the Finder, whatever they want to see, they have to look, where is my search box? And they give not the right answers you will have. So therefore, yes, Microsoft is doing a good job, hopefully, with Bill Bear, but it takes a little time to fit all together. And normally, I always say to the people, yes, you need all those SharePoint. Go to SharePoint and take this search. That's the best one you have in SharePoint, and not go in other sites. But it depends where you are. So therefore, you have so many searches, and hopefully we do not have anything. We want to have one box and say, I need that. And you will answer, okay, ask Princess. So
now there's an idea. But I think it's nice, and having that feedback now, really nice to have that single search, and also if you've got the E5 license or paying a bit more, it can go beyond Microsoft 365 as well. And I'm seeing people who've adopted Microsoft 365 search and kind of embrace that as the place. I'm hearing less and less complaints about search. It's still there, still get the same grumbles because people still don't do enough information architecture, but it's certainly improving a lot. I'd like to see a few more recurring theme here. I'd like to see a few more APIs for configuring some of the items on it in the back end. Some of them are there, and I have to admit, I haven't played around with the very latest, but it would be nice to be able to deploy some of the things like the bookmarks and the even the locations and bits programmatically, and to build those in. But it's funny, when I saw that search AMA, I was like, right, what questions have I got? I don't know if I can think of many particularly. It kind of just works these days.
Oh, well, I would have questions. So I was not even aware of this AMA, mostly because I do not focus on search. But of course, as for everyone, search is part of my life. Just like, where is that? It's two things. It's first, it's the lost and found experience. I know what I'm looking for. I just can't find it right now. And then, of course, stuff like metadata just like helps retrieving things. That's, of course, it does. Even if you go for folders, it will help finding things if you exactly know what you're looking for. But most people do not experience this. I exactly know what I'm looking for. But
is that we had that chat in that document about the thingy somewhere?
Yeah, so I have an idea. I want to explore. I want to discover. It is not search. It is discovering. And this exploring and just like I don't know which path I want to go. I don't know if I'm looking for the right person to tell me something, or for a Yammer post, or for some data in a system. And then, of course, if everything is just like more connected, Viva experience, that will help us. That will help us along the way. Yes, of course, it will do. So questions that I have is, what are the next federated search connectors that you will just like publish? Because right now we have dynamics and we have cognitive search, and of course we have graph, but there needs to be more, right? So because users don't care where the data sits, they want one search box. One. They do not want just like several ones. And a nice system needs to figure out the context in which they are searching and then display what's most relevant to them. Users do not want to go to a place and then find stuff there. Users want to have a certain kind of experience, and the system needs to deduct from that experience what the context is that information should just like be then retrieved.
If I want to say during the development of the bot, I have the same thing, because I know, or the people know me about administrators and the stuff. We talk about several things we all together know. But the normal users have no idea. So I got to Bing and other search engines and look what other people, normal users, are searching with OneDrive. And then I have to tell, okay, they are asking several things, and that are also included in the OneDrive bot. Because normally the people, I do not talk, and the admins do not talk against the bot. But the normal users, they do that. And therefore, I have to introduce all these stuff inside the bot.
Yep. Agreed.
I think it's true. Although I'd say, Louise, I think Microsoft Search for Microsoft stuff is pretty good at having the context. So like if we're in OneDrive, it will search one by default. If you're in SharePoint, it will search SharePoint by default. If we're in Teams, nothing will come back because it's useless. You know, all these things have got the different context with the search there. In terms of pulling other content from other systems, you can do that now. I mean, it's already got connectors in for ServiceNow and Confluence and Jira when they're recently, and it's really easy to build your own ones as long as it's got an API, which isn't always the case, sadly. Back to the APIs again. You can tell I've been seeing Yannick a lot recently. Then you can sort of pull that content in. So I think it's really nice. But if people have questions, join in for that AMA. I'm certainly hoping to tune in and see what. It's always interesting to hear what challenges people are facing with it as well as what hopefully Microsoft is doing about it.
Yeah, so I think the point that Hans was raising is really valid. So we as consultants and developers and just like thinking about M365 for at least 40 hours a week, sometimes if it's just like 24/7, we have no clue what users think anymore. We're just like so disconnected from what everyday people struggle with because they already have a job. They can't make our job as well. So they want to have a unified search experience, but they can't articulate, I want to have unified search experience. They never heard about that term. For us, it's just like pretty easy to determine that. Yes, of course they want that. Everyday users are just like dealing with cascading subfolders. They still think about putting stuff into boxes. The concept of having metadata is wildly unknown to it is exhausting to just like fill out a few fields. I would just like make these long file names, right? Final B, because why not? Because I can.
I wonder if we've just got to a point where, I mean, I remember having these conversations probably about, nearly 10 years ago now about metadata and things. And it's like, have we just been banging the same drum that it's just not working?
It is still valid because how people were raised and how we experience things, and it will take another 10 years and maybe even 20, and it is a good idea to at least sometimes think about for whom are we doing this. and what
Oh,
are
I just
what are the
realised.
everyday struggle that they have. So yes, I know I want an API, I want this and this and that. Okay, cool.
I've
Yes,
realised the solution. It's Viva File Renamer. Job done.
But I have also a solution. You can call Agnes Molnar from Hungary. She's Mrs. Search.
Great point. Great point.
Yeah, and I like to call with Agnes. Funny thing, when I called her last time, she was like, "I can't find my cable. Sorry, I need to call you back." So even if you specialize in search, it can be that something is just like not where you expect it to be, and then you can't find it. So, hi Agnes.
If she's listening, she's like, "Oh, I can't believe she shared that." Oh no.
Yeah, she will never call me back again.
She won't be able to find your number. Right, we'll move on. Some events and things come up now. So we've got, what's it next? Yes, next week, Microsoft Inspire, which is kind of the lesser well-known of kind of some of the big Microsoft conferences, because it's very much targeted at Microsoft partners on there. But I'm hearing little wiggles of some quite interesting news is come about that for certain areas, and certainly some of the kind of bigger names in Microsoft. Donna Sarker kind of hinted about some interesting chats coming around accessibility. Dan Holmes been talking about Yammer and dropping some heavy hints of stuff coming on there. So it feels, usually you kind of think Ignite and Builds were the big announcements, and then there's bits and pieces in between. It's certainly, I'm getting the feeling there might be some interesting stuff. So worth keeping an eye, even if you can't attend, keep an eye on the Twitters and the hashtag and seeing what people are sharing about that. And if you can, I would definitely recommend signing up for that as well. Next one, Hans, you mentioned you're doing AMS Kinshasa.
Yes, in Africa. That's the first time I'm speaking at Congo. First, I have to look how many people are there. That was interesting. And I talk about, again, always in OneDrive, and I talk about tips and tricks. So that's a series I always change a little bit because, yes, sometimes it changes.
Everything changes. Yeah.
Everything changes, although OneDrive, they make it good, they make it bad, but it's in the right direction, and therefore you can target. That's in August, yes.
So yeah, August the 20th. I couldn't find a site for that. There is a form link. I'm going to try and hunt down, but if not, I'll put the link to that forms in the show notes.
Yep.
We have coming up in September the 10th, Collab Days Netherlands. I don't think they've announced who's speaking at that yet. I haven't seen. In fact, maybe it shows on here. Oh,
They did
there's
not
a name there. Apparently they have, according to this. Yeah. There's a couple of troublemakers up the top there straight away.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I wonder what I'm doing here in front row.
You can't remember.
I don't know how I got into that. So I think they did not announce just like publicly on Twitter, but nonetheless, the site is public and online. And Collab Days are always a super fantastic experience. So the older amongst us will still remember they originate from SharePoint Saturdays, and now it's Collab Days, and usually they take place on a Saturday as well, which means that we can just like mingle, drink, etc. on Friday and on Saturday, which is a cool thing. And yes, this takes place in Vianen, which is right in the middle of nowhere next to Utrecht.
I was going to ask if anyone knew where that was. Never heard of it.
Yeah, because I've been there 4 years ago, and they have a very, very cool pancake restaurant, and I need to go there again.
I'm definitely going to put it on the list for this year. I couldn't go, for next year. I couldn't go this year, sadly. Next up in, I've missed a link here. Where's it gone? Techorama. So Techorama, again in Holland, is coming up in October 11th and 12th. And are you speaking at that one as well, Louise? Or?
Yes, I will be speaking. I think I forgot which session I would give. I think something about performance in Power Apps. So how to supercharge your apps so that they really run fast. I'm looking forward to that.
And Techorama's more of a developer event.
It is a very nerdy developer event. So I've been there in Belgium
I can hear Gary go.
a couple of weeks ago, and it was a fantastic experience because I met a lot of people, and I asked them, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then they told me what they were doing, and I didn't understand a word. That was a quite humbling experience. Just like all kinds of .NET MAUI developers, and I was like, So that was nice, but I learned a lot, and they learned something from me as well. So and it's they decorate everything very nice, just like Las Vegas, and it's a good experience. So looking forward to that again.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I have missed one. My whiskey's standing in the way of things. The Power Platform Conference, the global one happening in September. That I know we've spoken about before on the show, and Louise, you're speaking there, the first ever global Power Platform Conference, which will be very exciting, and in Florida, which is very nice. You're going to have a busy September and October again, Louise, I can tell.
Yeah, so July and August is just really summer break for me, but for September, October, and November, the party starts again, and this one is Florida, and of course, again, hurricane season. So that, yeah, I think so. So that will be fun. Looking forward to that, and I will be talking about the Creator Kit for Makers by Microsoft. So they finally released some Fluent UI controls, which are ready to use and under the hood code components, but modifiable for makers as well. And I will be showing on how to utilize them.
Nice. We've got Cloud Days Belgium on Saturday, October the 15th. Oh, look at those chocolates.
That's mean, right?
Yes, that's very mean. And I think, call for sponsors. Oh, no, content is finalised. So I think they've sent out the speakers for that one. So lots of good Dutch ones. Sadly, it is also the same weekend as the South Coast Summit, which I haven't got there stupidly, but yes, same weekend as South Coast Summit, where I know Louise, you're definitely there. Yes, because you're playing the piano. Of course, remember Aaron talking about last week.
So they did not confirm any session yet, but it would be lovely to play the piano in the evening and then have a session the next day. Yes, and I practiced already.
So it has to happen. And Hans, did you say you're hoping to come over for that one?
Yeah, maybe. I have applied.
Fantastic.
So I had a chance to Belgium, but I started in Belgium, my OneDrive career before I go to US, because that was my first English-speaking session. Long years. The second one was in Barcelona with 180 people, European SharePoint conference, and the third one was in Birmingham. No, Leicester. Sorry, and it was the beginning of the story.
Nice. So looking back there, so yeah, we've got South Coast Summit.
Everyone remember their first speaking gig?
Yes. My first community one, I remember in Leicester. So SharePoint Saturday, Leicester. Very, very good weekend, that one. Enjoyed that on there. Although I'd spoken at different conferences, but different. They were all kind of formal and really boring, with lots of very boring questions. Whereas when I got to SharePoint Saturday, Leicester, I was like, this is not what I was expecting. This is a lot more fun. It's a lot more easygoing.
What about you, Gary? Do you still remember your first speaking gig?
So I did user groups for quite a while, but my first kind of proper conference was European SharePoint Conference in Prague, which was a few days.
Small start, yeah.
Just a small start, yeah. A few days after my daughter was born. It was a very interesting week. As Kevin can attest, because he was there.
I do remember you arriving, and didn't your cable not work, or you didn't have a converter or something on the night before, and everything was gradually running out of batteries, and
yeah, I had no power, and I ended up reusing an adapter from the TV in the room, and it was all sorts of strange weirdness, but it worked. It powered it up. Yeah.
So you've been an engineer, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I've been out drinking and I suddenly got back and saw these panicked messages from Gary, and then a photo of all this weird connections. Go, that looks really dangerous. Just one last event. Talking of European SharePoint Conference, I think Gary, are you coming to that, or I think you should come along?
I'm not signed up for this one, but most likely South Coast Summit. Yeah,
definitely on that.
I've got a backlog of things to actually submit for now.
So that was the only conference, European SharePoint conference with Azure and blah, 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 blah. But that was the first one. Only 2 conferences I have not met. So I was starting in Berlin. There was a small conference from the European SharePoint conference. And but always in Denmark, they said no. And this is the 3rd time and my 3rd attempt. And now they said, okay, you can come.
Finally allowed in. Yeah, it's the first big conference I remember attending, and I've never been to Ignite or Build, so it's always felt like the kind of pinnacle to me. So very excited to be speaking there, and it's such a great team working on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And enjoy the event. Cool. Right. So lots of events. We've got links to all those in the show notes. So some of those, I know the South Coast Summit still got call for speakers. There is a whole track on new speakers. So if you haven't spoken before, apologies, going to speak for everyone else. I'm sure if you speak to us, we'll be happy to help. But also the South Coast Summit have got, I'm trying to remember the 2. It's Paddy Byrne, isn't it? And I've forgotten the other person's name working on that. But there's a whole track with new speakers. There can be there, so submit for it. There'll be plenty of people that can help you through it. I know there was a whole track at Scottish Summit, so if you're thinking about it, just go and do it. As you say, Louise, talking about that first step that we've all done, it's great fun.
It is a great experience, and I like that Scott somehow said something to just make this a thing. So having a new speakers track is really a super inclusive idea and super welcoming, and I appreciate this. So because it does not feel like, ooh, but they have 10 years of experience and I don't, because we're all impostering. So it's just I'm like that before every time I go on stage. I don't know about you, but this is always, and once I start talking, everything is fine. But the 5 minutes before, I just get pretty, I wouldn't say it's stage fright, but I'm just excited, and you can see that. And it is good to have such a welcoming track at conferences.
So I have also to say I was also invited in India for a first-time speaker event at Saturday, 6 o'clock in the evening, their time. And have to see how many people there come. 70 people, and one is doing a good presentation. And I have to say, wow, if they go to some presentations Microsoft will do, no, absolutely good one, perfect.
Brilliant. No, so it's amazing some of the new people, what they're like, definitely. But I think we'll start to wrap up part 1 there, because we get onto recording and hearing about in part 2 the future of collaboration. So do I was about to say stick around. Do have a look out for when that show comes out in a week's time. Otherwise, see you all soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.